so we will get started here. Made a few changes on the audio. We heard there was some problems hearing it, so hopefully this will improve, and the moderators are looking at it. Okay, so today's going to be a little bit different than what we normally do, and let me explain in that regards. Normally on here, we go into a lot of depth with so what we're doing. We answer lots of technical questions, things of this nature. For the technical questions around Analytics GPT, there's going to be a lot of videos coming out over the next week and the next couple weeks showing off the technical capabilities and pieces like that. So we're not going to go into the exact details on this. We'd rather them come out on those videos. Keep your eyes for that on this call. We're going to try to keep this one short, concise, to the point. We're going to cover several major things that have been coming in on our questions. So our overall agenda here is we're going to talk about financials, what we're doing as much as we can on this call, how we're progressing forward, etc., across all divisions. So that's been the number one request. Why were the revenues down in Q2, etc. So we're going to talk about that. The second thing we're going to talk about is Analytics GPT launch, which is coming up shortly. There's a lot of questions around that. What we're doing, how we're handling the launch, how we're doing the advertising, etc., and what to expect in the next few weeks. So we're going to go through that. And then lastly, there's a few stuff and questions on the boards. So we will get to those at the end or appropriately. But again, the objective here is to cover those pieces. That should get everything that's coming in. We're not going to go into technical details on this call. We will have those in videos that will be available shortly. So stay tuned for those. And again, the objective here is to get through these pieces. Let's do it quickly, let's do it concisely, and let's make everything to the point. So we get started on that agenda. Number one, first point, Q2 financials. A lot of the questions coming in around this are asking two things. What are we doing to help our financials? And the other thing is, why was there a drop from the previous year? So the drop from the previous year is primarily due to the COVID business. So the COVID was done earlier this spring, and we announced the shuttering of that business. It's not something you just cut off like a switch, unfortunately. This was a pretty big operation, and there are some residual overhead from shutting that down. But, as we stated in the press releases earlier this year and stuff, that portion of the business is pretty much done. And so what we have been doing over the past few months and what we were doing in Q2 around the COVID business is effectively shutting down that operation and all the support and everything that goes with it. So, for the COVID pieces, we removed all the unnecessary business portions. This includes, streamlining operations. There was a lot of personnel around those, a lot of medical staff and things of this nature. Those have to be repositioned, repurposed, and moved or let go as those business units are shutting down. And, the pandemic is over and a lot of the mandates were closed. So these are not small operations when it comes to that. So hundreds of people. The logistics have also been shut down. So both sides of the Pacific, there were large logistical operations to handle all of this. So you're talking about shipping worldwide, shipping, receiving, permits, all that's closed. They had to be, and that had to be done in multiple areas. Because we were shipping all over the place during the pandemic. But both of those are closed. The operational units are closed, and the logistics units are down. So that's part of it. We closed down lots of screening areas, etc. So you'll see we had screening areas all over the place. Some on set, some off set, some with different companies. We even had a couple of our own that were set up, mostly in Vancouver area, but we did have some in other metropolitan areas where people could come in and get at any time of the day. That was a necessary function. A lot of those are shut down also, as those screening areas are no longer necessary. And then there's the last piece about removing those operations and stuff, where is equipment. There was a lot of equipment ordered for these types of things, in particular like PCR equipment, lab equipment, things of this nature that had to be brought in, and all that has to be shut down, repurposed, etc. Now, the reason there's some expenses with this type of stuff, we're letting people go and shutting down business units. There's always expenses, but in addition, this is pandemic material, so virus material, etc. This is not just stuff you can just chuck in a waste bin. So you have to dispose of these things properly. Equipment has to be disposed of properly or repurposed properly. It's not allowed to just float around, so to speak. So with those operations being streamlined and brought back, we've effectively got a lid on that, and we shouldn't see any more overhang from any of those operations. It should be just fine. Now, next thing. So operation. That's the next piece, underneath the financials we want to talk about is that. And that's moving along. So we've recently announced some openings in Vancouver, and more of those will be announced as they are coming forth. And one of the major pieces that people are asking about is how those permits work and why those things are delayed. So they work basically in 3 stages. So you have pre-approvals, city permits come next after pre-approvals usually, and then installation pieces after that. So one of the things that we've been doing and reporting on in this are how those permits are coming along. They were really slow. The vast majority of the reason of those slowdowns is just backup. It's bureaucratic backup, waiting on city permits to get through, pre-approvals to get through, etc. So you submit your material and you're in the hurry up and wait mode. Most of that's clearing up. And that's what we're seeing on this. And we do have real numbers around that, whereas especially we were waiting, in some cases north of 4 or 5 months on pre-approval permits. In certain areas, those have gone down to 2, and they've gone, they're getting shorter as time goes on. Now, one of the things that those guys have been doing, we asked about improving the financials, is they quit waiting around to get the established pieces in Vancouver and those areas that they were working on, and moved on to Toronto and moving eastward with the expansions and putting more EV operations on the ground, start generating more revenue. And we're happy to say that those permit cycles and everything in the Ontario area are coming along much, much faster. And as those are approved and moved on, we will have that out in the news. You can see it. But they're very close to being at the finish line in most of the cases, going from in the Ontario area. The vast majority of that's waiting on permits. We have the materials in the country. It's ready to go. As soon as those are done, it's just hit the gas and get moving. In the meantime, while those permits are going, there's not much you can do as an individual or business. Just have to make their way through the system. But again, that's sped up more than twice what it used to be, and is continuing to speed up. So we don't expect it to slow down anytime soon. We actually expect it to continue moving forward. And as a unit, the business of on the financials hasn't changed. The idea is to move from west to east, as that's a good representation of how EVs and stuff are coming into the country. So as we're moving from the British Columbia area to the East Coast, there will be more expansions planned, and when those come out and when they're available, we will be announcing that. And the next question coming around those financials is, in the EV, is how do these things get funded? And how do permits and installations and stuff, how do they make money? So there's two major ways that those make money. The first, obviously, is kilowatt hours. So anytime you're pumping kilowatts through systems like that, that's where money comes from. And the second piece comes back to carbon tax credits. And we made that announcement a few months ago about working with Rewatt Power in order to monetize the carbon tax credits. So, how does that work on the ground? It depends on the client. Okay, so the question is, how are those revenues? How do they work? How do the revenues get split, etc.? Well, again, it depends on the client. So, certain clients opt in and say, we're just going to buy equipment. If they just want to buy equipment and then pay maintenance fee or something, that's fine. We will sell them equipment. But we're also able to provide the support needed for those pieces, like installation support, electrical support, getting permits. That's a big deal. A lot of people don't want to do that. They don't want to deal with paperwork, etc. And then who pays for the ongoing maintenance? Who pays for the initial electricity bills, and who controls the carbon tax credits and revenues from that, etc. So all these are points of debate with each customer, and they have to be codified with each customer. Now, we offer full support on both ends, but again, let's take, for instance, a larger customer who already has, say, contracts for electrical maintenance on their properties, or they have contracts for maintenance in parking lots or parking decks. They don't want to give up those maintenance contracts, and so we're able to put those under the contracts where we do installations, etc. So the permit and the revenue from each one of those, again, is specific, and it depends on those details. And that can range from, like I said, just product purchase all the way to full support from Datametrex, and we do it all. But again, we take the vast majority of revenue, etc. But that's how those work, and that's how those get funded. And the last pillar of this, the second to last, Analytics GPT. So I'm going to come to that in more depth a little bit later in this call. So just hang on to that, and we'll get to that in a much larger block, as there's a lot more to go over it than just underneath the financials. So the next pillar we want to talk about here, Imagine Health, the Medical, etc. So how's this going to work? So right now, current state of affairs, Imagine Health and Medical are operating pretty much in Vancouver. They're operating in Alberta, Edmonton and Calgary areas. And what are they doing? Well, right now there's a third physical clinic that's being worked up in Vancouver, and we've talked about that before. And that's going to be the first physical clinic that we're putting in underneath the Imagine Health area in the Vancouver area. And this will be connected, with the other two in Alberta and ran in a very similar fashion. So we'll be able to provide, the physical services in addition to the telehealth services, et cetera, that back up those telehealth services in case you need to come in or you need stuff that's done that you just can't do over a video call or screen. In addition to that, we're using the same type of logic as far as moving west to east, and we have looked at expansions also in Toronto and those areas. And there are, facilities that have been considered, et cetera. But they haven't left behind the current facilities. So recently, the Edmonton clinic has been upgraded, and some of its facilities, we've added facilities There's more exam rooms that are in there because we weren't able to handle all of the inbound that was coming in. So with those new exam rooms and such, this will allow us to cover a lot more of the business areas that we weren't covering before due to lack of space and renovation there. So, the wellness centers, the therapies that are coming in, the requests for therapy and stuff that you just can't do without physical equipment. And with those new renovations of facilities, we'll be able to take in more business, more exam rooms, et cetera. And so that's the current 1,000-kilometer state of affairs on all three of those with regards to the financials. And now the next portion of the financials that I want to talk about is divesting the business interest that we've talked about and how this works or how we've got it imagined right now. So we've announced in press releases that DM is looking for ways to possibly spin out or divest the Imagine Health and medical areas. And, why do we want to do this and how is it going to work? Okay, so Medical and Imagine Health were both built under the auspices of the pandemic and what we're doing in the health sectors. Now, it's our belief at this time that these groups and those medical facilities have more value slightly apart from Datametrex itself than with it. And for us, that's pretty clear. If we separate these guys, there's a lot of positives that come along with it. Datametrex is going to contain, will retain some ownership of new entities, however this ends up. Investors get some ownership of new entities, how this came up. So everybody's going to get a piece of the pie. And then we have a new fully formed medical entity that has both physical facilities, online facilities, et cetera, and a history of performing for the last few years. So this, in and of itself, really streamlines the operations and the overhead that has to be done inside Datametrex and outside of it. So inside Datametrex, we get more streamlined. It's more of a pure AI play. And this is what we're hearing a lot from investment people interested in investing in the company, et cetera, is they want to be able to clearly delineate how they're going to invest their money at this point in time. Do we want to invest it in the medical areas? Do we want to invest it directly into, the AI plays? And this will further those objectives along. So it streamlines things, puts it in an AI play. It also puts both of these entities under direct control and influence of the people that are most qualified to run those situations, especially in a financial point of view, like medical staff and doctors, people running medical facilities, and able to take a larger hand in strategic decision making along those lines, and artificial intelligence guys, et cetera, with those types of backgrounds, able to weigh in, and investors that are more interested in the AI. And so when we do that, again, with that clear delineation of mandates and efforts, Datametrex will be able to produce more on two fronts. So DM shareholders now have not only ownership in Datametrex, but they also have ownership in the medical entities that are coming out, however those end up being specifically structured. And they also, Datametrex will have ownership in those also. So it reduces overhead. It reduces, time to launch anything, strategic decision making, et cetera. So more agile decisions, better operations, et cetera. And it gives us the opportunity for Datametrex shareholders and everybody to benefit from this because it creates more value for the company and the shareholders, as we're now generating value on two fronts. So this is our primary mandate. So how do we generate value on two fronts? In this case, we think that due to, with what I just outlined, that is our belief at this time. And we think that that's going to work, right? So we're rolling it out. Right now, the entire, how exactly this is going to be structured is not exactly clear. Paperwork is in with the exchange, and they will provide us guidance along with legal counsel on how to structure that, how to make sure that Datametrex shareholders get a piece, and then this creates value for both the company, shareholders, etc. And not just value, but accelerated value, like we said. And we're confident, that we can carry these both, with the medical facilities being ran by qualified medical staff, and then the AI inside Datametrex, which is what we've been leaning on for quite some time. So in a nutshell, we've had to do a lot of diverse things over the years to survive, to keep the doors open, and to advance. And we're going to continue doing those things. So, we will continue moving forward. We'll continue to improve, and we're going to see how this works, the divestment of this business works out, and generate, with the objectives being generate plenty of value for both shareholders, the company, etc. So over the course of the next year, we expect this to work out very, very, very well. And, again, the little engine that could. So that's the financials and the 1,000-kilometer view of what we're doing. Just to recap, in a nutshell, the vast majority of the reduced revenue in Q2 compared to the previous years due to COVID operations. That's been shut down, streamlined operations, removing unnecessary parts, etc. Went over that in a little more in depth. EV operations are coming along. They're moving a lot faster than they were. The permits and the approvals are coming through much faster, and the expansions are moving along more quickly than previously. And with Imaginel, those are continuing to. In Medical, that's continuing to grow. We are still expanding into Vancouver, remodeling in some Edmonton, bringing in new business there. And we are looking in ways to spin this out in order to create ownership and value for Datametrex investors, and for Datametrex itself, and to clearly delineate, where these two entities, one being focused on healthcare and the other being focused on artificial intelligence development as a discipline. And we will. That being said, we will continue to look at how we can leverage the AI inside healthcare and what we can do to improve the value there. So that's the summary. For the next piece, I'm going to talk about Analytics GPT and what to expect from that in the next few weeks. So Analytics GPT is coming along. We announced this in the spring. This is just as a recap, this is the next generation of our product, our cybersecurity product developed by our subsidiary Nexology. It allows the marriage of GPT technology we've been working on in conjunction with several other companies, a few others over the past few years, with our analytics platform, with the idea being we should be able to expand the analytics platform to more customers and a larger client base using GPT technology, etc. So Analytics GPT is going to be launching in the next couple of weeks. This is not, we're not measuring in months or days. We're going to have a date out before the end of this week. Okay? And now, the date can't be announced on the Discord, or we probably would. It'd just be easier. It has to go out in a press release. So expect a press release in the next few days as soon as we get through the approvals and all that stuff. So dates will be out by the end of the week. And what we're going to be doing to that, why are we a few weeks behind? Well, we're dotting the I's and crossing the T's. We're working on feedback that we've had, and we're making it faster. And we're making it more capable. And what we're trying to do is avoid a crash at launch or any type of impediments when we do launch this. So this stuff is seriously fast compared to what it used to be. We used to have intervals sometimes where you could go away and have to gather data for hours and stuff. We're looking at, in most cases, it's about 15 minutes or less on your first pass, and after that, it's just seconds. So but again, like I said earlier, we're going to have videos out showcasing some of this stuff over the next few weeks. So expect those, and expect some of those use cases to be more detailed. And in addition to that, there were some pieces that we wanted to include, and we were asked to include. So the emotions piece, we talked about this more recently in an interview with Agoracom. So that emotions piece is not something we anticipated with the first launch, but it's working. So we're going to put it in there, and it's going to, it'll be available. This was something that we were planning on doing a little bit later, but it's so close, there's no reason not to launch without it. And again, the speed, the scalability, and stuff, and just working on a little bit of feedback right here, making sure the UIs are responsive, etc. So, and the other things that we've been doing, around there on those GPT launches is it took a little longer to get the GPT working outside government fields of interest in a couple cases because we wanted the answers to be super good. So we had really good answers to begin with, but we wanted great answers in some of those fields. And we're showing really good, great answers right now. Some of them in that video, just with Canadian housing and such, and how to do those drill downs. So with those drill downs being done, we have shortened the time it takes to really get your data sets together from weeks down to, in some cases, just a few minutes. And those UIs are intuitive and easy to use now. So they can be used, and we have validated that. And so those have been retrained, validated in other domains, etc. There's other scaling considerations, too, the team's been working on. So scaling considerations come in two varieties. There's technical scaling. That's a lot of what we've been working on. You can think about it in two ways, depth versus breadth. So when you're working with large companies and larger entities, the usage patterns that you see are depth. What does that mean? It means that they use the system sporadically, but they use it really heavy when they do use it. So it has to be fast for those use cases, et cetera. And the other one is breadth. And that's not a use case that we covered as well in the past, but it's a use case we have to cover now to be successful. And that breadth is lots of people doing the same thing at the same time. The interesting thing about that is, from a web perspective, this is a fairly known quantity, okay? So this type of scale we have answers to. Scaling web pages, scaling web clients, scaling iPhone clients, Android clients, etc. That's a known quantity, been doing it for 15 years. What we don't have any data on, or anything like that, is scaling language models and scaling GPT, generated pre-trained text models. Nobody does. This stuff's really new tech. But what we have seen, in our own models on that type of front is almost 100-fold increase in sometimes, depending on use case and the standard that we're setting there. But it's a massive increase in how fast these pieces are coming back and in their accuracy. So those are a lot of the considerations that are going on inside there. And what we don't want to do is say, hey, we're ready, open this thing up. And then, especially with the breadth, we've seen a lot of the depth scaling that we talked about, but with the breadth, we don't want it to fall on its face. That's just a recipe for disaster. And so, just dotting the I's, crossing the T's. We're just making sure that this thing's going to work. We're a few weeks delayed on that front, but it's not going to be much. Now, how's that going to roll out? Well, it's going to roll out in stages, like we said. But those stages are not going to be long stages. Okay? So what do I mean by long? So let's qualify that before we go any further. We're talking weeks. We're measuring weeks in stage time, not necessarily, and maybe not even necessarily weeks. But we're measuring in weeks. We're not measuring in months and years. Again, so the stages, not necessarily in this order. Again, everything will be detailed in those PRs this week, but not necessarily, enterprise, that's our current model. That's where we're working with now. It's also the current partners we're working with. We re-upped several of those ongoing contracts in the last couple of months. So with the larger business partners, et cetera, that's where we sit at first. So enterprise models and such, those are covered. In addition, there's two other pieces that are going to be coming out. The next piece, are the smaller areas, the SMB areas, and that's where we're expanding to, and we want to make sure that we don't fall over on the breadth portion of the scaling, so that we can get enough clients in, the clients in, and everybody can use stuff at the same time, and we won't have a lot of issues, around that, or people, trying to get the answers they want. Being, nothing's more infuriating than you're paying for a service and they have downtime, and then they say, hey, I know you need that answer right now, but unfortunately, we're not going to be able to provide it for you at this time. And you got to wait for 3 days. That's not what we're going to do, and that's not what we're trying to do. So, and the last thing is demos, right? We want to be able to show this off to everybody. So there will be demos. We're going to put those up, and we're going to allow people to go in and look. Now, the demos aren't likely to contain, give you the ability to search all over the web for data and stuff. They'll definitely be limited. So, you will not have full access to the facilities. That being said, you will have access to enough. You'll have access to demo facilities. So you'll see, what the engines can do, what kind of data they can provide, what kind of feedback that they can provide, and how that can help you in your business and such. And we're going to be detailing all of those rollouts this week, right? And so we will have that in the press release, how those are going to work, how you'll be able to access the different tiers, the rollout strategies, etc. But again, I'm not allowed to go into those specific dates on Discord, etc. Now, another thing that's going to be in there is we're going to be showing off the new UIs in those videos too. So there's been a lot of questions around those new UIs. We showed off some of it in the last video, but we weren't really focused on the UIs. We were more focused on the contents of, how does this thing work, and what are the problems that we're solving with this. And in the last video, we solved the problem of getting the right data, which is a huge time sink in most cases. In fact, it's one of the largest time sinks to getting any operation off the ground, as we detailed in the video. But again, these strategies are not new. And one of the things that we do when we do these strategies is we look at what's come before and we take notes. And so for that, there's some large plans that have been rolled out like this. For instance, we get the biggest player in the Western space is ChatGPT. And these types of rollouts, like I'm discussing here, these are not unusual, right? So, with ChatGPT, it's last December, I believe. Don't quote me on that. Was their initial rollout December 15th, and that was limited, right? You couldn't get in, and that was limited availability, and not until May did you get a version of ChatGPT that really allowed you to search the internet. So you can't get answers to immediate questions through those pieces right now because scalability on these things becomes an issue. And then, ChatGPT enterprise business style accounts, they were available last week. So it's, now, that being said, Datametrex is able to benefit from that type of stuff because the research on this gets published, right? This is OpenAI, et cetera. So as these things scale and what's being done inside there, we're able to leverage that, stand on the back of giants, and be tall. Same thing happens in China, Baidu, for those that are interested. They had a limited rollout in March, and the availability is going out, I believe, August 31st, last week. So these types of staged rollouts aren't anything new, but I want to be really clear. We're not staging a rollout for the next 8 months. We're staging a rollout for the next several weeks, okay? So, but we are going to stage a rollout, and the details will be in there along the lines that, I talked about earlier with business interests and demos and, SMB and self-serve type options. Those details will be available in the press releases that are going to come out, this week. So, but again, like I said, we're going to get it right. We want this to work, to not fall over, because if there's no infrastructure, there's no users. You can't access the service, it doesn't matter. Now, the next piece to Analytics GPT I want to touch on here, that was the technical pieces, how the rollout's going to work, how the PRs are going to work, and how the announcements are going to work. The next piece is people have been asking around, how do we plan on scaling this as visibility and advertising are concerned. So the ad campaigns that you guys have heard us talking about, and me in particular, are ongoing. Those have been part of something that we've had, for quite some time now. So they're paid for long ago, and so when people ask where television spots and stuff are coming from, those are parts and packages that we've been part of for a while. So those are going to they're going to continue. Now we don't have full control over the release dates, but those should be available this fall. So expect some of that to come as these releases are coming out. The idea is, as these releases are coming out, get a little traction. Let's make sure that everything's working, et cetera. So TV spots hit, and then we're ready to take in any type of influx that we're going to get around those spots. And again, the details around those TV spots will be available in PRs over the next few weeks or so through September, as those dates get more solidified and clarified. But again, this is not something that's going to go on for 9 months or anything like that. We're measuring, looking at those TV spots coming out, and it's probably looking towards the end of September, probably pushing into October for the TV spots. You want the TV spots to trail that announcement just a little bit. So as we're getting things up, wiggle room, we want TV spots to come out, work with the production companies, etc. But we've done a lot of the filming and stuff already. So a lot of that's taken care of. Now they're moving into post-production and pieces like that. And we will be working with them over the next few weeks to do it. In addition to that, we've mentioned this before, but we are working on targeted marketing campaigns not just in Canada and the U.S., but we're working on targeted marketing overseas. And the idea behind the target marketing and the TV spots is we want to get to people that can use the product, okay? So that leads me to one other piece that I want to take on later, which is kind of what differentiates us from a generic GPT like ChatGPT. I'll get to that in just a second. But for those targeted marketing efforts, it's not going to do us any good to carpet bomb Facebook. The vast majority of the people on, say, Facebook or Twitter are not going to be able to use the product or not effectively use the product for the targets that we're looking for. So, businesses, et cetera. So we will be targeting those businesses and going after them directly. We think that's a better use of funds. We think that's a better use of the advertising, and it's more smart. And we get a lot better response from this. We've seen this over the years with some of the dabbling we've done with targeted marketing, both with law enforcement and in other areas. So we're leveraging those techniques, building lists, compiling the targets, and then we're going to fire from there. And we're pretty confident this is going to work based upon what we're seeing, how people are using it, et cetera. People ask us also, how do we work with the governments on this? Well, with contracts and such, we work with the government just like we say in the press releases. So the information is there. Just read the press releases around the government. That's what we're doing. In addition to that, we've mentioned some other things in those press releases a few times. We do work with, say, the Trade Commissioner's Office. We were in Korea with them not a few months ago, and we're still working with them. We've been working with the Trade Commissioner's Office for years on all kinds of different things, whether it was from COVID to tech and, back and forth. So that's how we get involved or help leverage those relationships, et cetera, overseas. The Trade Commissioner's Office is able to open up a lot of doors into other governments, into other markets, et cetera. And we are also working with our partner corporations, like we said, we're a partner with Latte. We're a preferred vendor over there, partners with Samsung, et cetera, and we're working with them to see where we can put Analytics GPT inside those facilities. So the vast majority of it, targeted marketing, making sure this gets out properly, with this no hiccups, et cetera. And again, just to recap that, we're looking at weeks. We're not talking about months or anything like that. This is weeks, and that's what we're looking at. I hope that's clear. Now, last thing, real quick on Analytics GPT. This is a bit for the tech talk, but something that keeps coming up. Chat GPT is a model that is built to write prose. That's what it is. Okay, it's a large language model built to write prose. Ernie from, say, Baidu in China is a direct competitor to ChatGPT, right? Google has announced direct competitors to ChatGPT. We don't compete directly with ChatGPT. We do offer some of the same facilities that ChatGPT does. But the idea is not to be a generic prose text engine. That's not what we're trying to do. What we do is we do leverage that facility, and we use those large language models to lend voice to our analytics. So instead of having analytics that requires a PhD in mathematics to use and to get the most out of, with these interpretive models and with the language interfaces that they provide, we're able to expose those analytics to more and more people and more facilities. We also do offer capabilities like ChatGPT. Those LLMs do have the ability to do summarizations, to write out entire reports, etc. And we've been reporting over that for years now. You've seen it in our summary engines. You've seen it in some of the videos we've done where we're showing entity extraction in the software, where we're showing the ability of the software to read in hundreds of thousands of, say, posts and produce a summary of what's going on there. That's all LLM functionality. That's ChatGPT functionality. And we do incorporate that, and that's part of it, and that's the part we leverage, okay? Now, what differentiates us? Well, it's portable, it's smaller, it's got the ability to be customized, and it's more accurate, right? So that's the vast majority of it right there. So we operate in a slightly different space than those guys. In fact, we operate in almost a completely different space. Their job is not to go after analytics and do that. And in fact, you're not allowed to target analytics with those pieces. You can't say, go after this and go find it, on the internet. If you don't have the data, go look it up, go drag it out of these corners of the dark web, etc. You can't do that. We allow that. And that's the biggest differentiator right there. Is we're an analytics engine. We're using LLM and GPT to build on those analytics. And AI is going to touch the entire spectrum. Everywhere. It's going to be ubiquitous with it. So it's not just an LLM, language generator. So we don't compete with them directly on that front. We're not trying to take down Google search. What we are trying to do is leverage those capabilities and the capabilities we've built in-house to make our packages, cybersecurity, discovery, etc., better, more accessible for everyone else. All right, so I hope that's really clear around what we're doing with Analytics GPT and the launch, and where we sit in those marketing areas versus where, say, ChatGPT sits or Ernie sits or some of the other LLM models that are coming out. Okay, and then the last thing for today. This is not as concise as I want it to be, but we're going to keep it. Just cover the things we said we're going to cover. Is there's been a lot of speculation running around about what Datametrex is doing in regards to, say, advertising and some PR contracts, etc. In particular, we've had people on the internet that have been very disparaging towards both myself, Datametrex, and board members, former employees, etc., and just really behaving poorly online. So this is what's going on from Datametrex perspective. Datametrex is unaware of any lawsuits filed against it. That's it. That's all. We don't know of any. they're not there as far as we know. In addition to that, if you look up the TSX guidelines and stuff, we're not supposed to respond to any internet rumors. And during this entire time frame, we announced a PR, an IR contract. We also announced us exiting that contract, and that's by the rules. The exchange requires us to report publicly through PRs any type of contracts we enter into or exit as far as the IR PR. And throughout, and the reason Datametrex chose not to do this is, we, upon reflection of the representation, we just made a decision not to continue on that front, that this is not the representation for us at this time. And throughout the whole process, we have been actively engaged with our legal counsel and with the exchange, and they have given us guidance on how to proceed, and we are following that guidance. So in a nutshell, Datametrex is not aware of any lawsuits filed against it. Datametrex is not aware of any criminal charges filed against it. Datametrex has been following the advice of legal counsel and the advice of regulators with regards with how do we respond to situations like this, and we will continue to do so. So I hope that covers everybody's permits and fears. We're really confident that this AI is going to carry us. We're really confident in the product we're bringing forward. And we're going to be showing that off in the next few weeks. We're streamlining operations. We shut down things we wanted to shut down. And right now, we're giving investors the opportunity, and we're giving ourselves the opportunity to increase the value that we have here by streamlining operations into medical facilities, into AI facilities, et cetera. So, we think this is going to work, and we're going to move it forward. We're going to see where it goes. That being said, we're confident in these moves, and we think that you guys can be also. So again, we'll have those dates and stuff out in a PR later this week for Analytics GPT, and more details around how that's launching. And we'll have more, expect some videos coming out. So keep your eyes open, and you guys can hear it from our channels on social media and on media around how the software works. And we'll be covering a lot of those technical details in those videos. So for the guys that are asking lots and lots of technical details, keep an eye out for those. We'll show them to you, so you don't have to hear me describe it, so you can see it for yourselves. So that's the summary. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. We appreciate it. And we're moving forward. And thanks for sticking with us. And we're going to make this successful. So that's what we're doing. I hope that everybody has a great week, and we'll talk to you later. Thank you.